Hello brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man channel. The most irritating battles are the ones you're forced to fight in your head, while everyone else thinks nothing is happening. That sentence alone explains why Sigma males get annoyed in ways most people will never understand. Here's a fact most people won't admit. Modern society is built for loud performers, not quiet operators. Systems reward visibility, noise, and constant self-advertising. But Sigma males don't move like that. They observe, calculate, and act only when it actually matters. And that mismatch creates daily friction, subtle, relentless, and incredibly draining. The funny part, none of these annoyances are dramatic. No public meltdowns, no speeches, no flexing, just a slow internal eye roll that could power a small generator. While everyone else is busy explaining themselves, chasing approval, or arguing for dominance, the Sigma male is silently dealing with a world that keeps misunderstanding restraint as emptiness, independence as arrogance, and silence as a problem that needs fixing. This isn't about being superior. It's about being wired differently in a system that wasn't designed for you, and then being expected to smile about it. So if you've ever been annoyed by things you couldn't quite explain, if you've ever felt exhausted without doing anything wrong, if you've ever realized the loudest people are often the least self-aware, then this list will feel uncomfortably familiar. Let's get into the 12 annoying things only Sigma males truly understand. Number 1, you hate being managed by people less self-aware than you. There's a quiet frustration that builds when you're forced to take instructions from someone who isn't even aware of their own blind spots. Sigma males live in a mental space where observation, strategy, and understanding come first. So watching someone stumble through decisions purely based on ego, habits, or ignorance feels like a personal assault on logic. It's not arrogance. It's an acute awareness of wasted potential and inefficiency that constantly grates against your mind. It's maddening because these managers don't recognize their own inconsistencies. They make rules without thinking about consequences, give orders that contradict each other, and enforce priorities that don't actually matter. To a Sigma male, their incompetence is impossible to ignore. Every irrational decision, every emotional reaction that clouds judgment, every moment of self-importance without merit is like nails scraping against mental clarity. You see how the system could work, how things could flow smoothly, yet the people in charge operate as if chaos were the plan. What makes it worse is that society often protects these people. Authority shields their mistakes. They get rewarded for being loud, confident, or decisive, while skill, awareness, and subtle intelligence go unnoticed. You end up doing the work twice, first managing the task, then managing the consequences of someone else's poor choices. Every meeting, every directive, every email carries an unspoken tension, because you know that your energy is being wasted keeping up with someone else's lack of self-awareness. It's not rebellion that drives the annoyance. Sigma males rarely challenge authority for the sake of ego. The irritation comes from clarity being ignored, from seeing a path to efficiency and realizing the people with power are blind to it. You absorb their mistakes quietly, solve their problems silently, and keep your peace outwardly while your mind seethes with the absurdity of it all. The emotional labor is invisible, but every second counts. In a world where most people never stop to reflect, being managed by someone less self-aware is a subtle torture. You're forced to bend around mediocrity without acknowledgement, and every interaction becomes a test of patience, restraint, and the quiet mastery that most will never even understand. Number 2, you're expected to be the strong one without consent. There's a silent weight that Sigma males carry, one that nobody talks about because it's invisible until it's too heavy to ignore. People assume that because you don't collapse under pressure, you don't feel it either. They mistake quiet composure for endless resilience, and suddenly you're the default pillar, the emotional anchor, the problem solver, without ever being asked if you want the role. It starts subtly. A friend dumps their frustration on you. A colleague leans on you for guidance that isn't part of your responsibility. Family members turn to you when chaos erupts, expecting calm and solutions without considering that you have limits too. You absorb, you manage, you maintain, all while the world carries on, as if it's your natural duty to fix things nobody else can handle. The frustration is compounded by the fact that people rarely notice. They don't acknowledge your effort or even realize its effort. Your strength becomes invisible because it's expected. You're neither praised nor thanked. You're just there, solid, silent, reliable, and because you don't complain or seek validation, they assume it's effortless. That assumption cuts deeper than outright criticism ever could. It's not about rejecting responsibility. Sigma males understand that life requires action and presence. The irritation comes from the lack of choice, the absence of respect for your boundaries. You didn't volunteer to be the strong one. You weren't asked if you were okay with holding the world upright. You just were. And while others revel in relief, you're quietly counting the mental and emotional toll, knowing that the very thing that sets you apart also makes you a target for everyone else's dependence. The irony is brutal. Strength, when expected without consent, becomes a burden, and the people depending on it will never understand the silent exhaustion it creates, because they only see the calm, the control, the ability to handle it. The weight of carrying everyone else's chaos quietly, without permission, without recognition, without applause. That is one of the uniquely infuriating truths only Sigma males truly live through. Number 3, you don't fit rebellion or obedience. There's a subtle, almost maddening isolation that comes from not fitting into the categories society is obsessed with. Most people are easy to understand. They either follow the rules or fight against them. They belong to a tribe, a team, a side. But Sigma males exist in a space outside of these simplistic binaries, and that alone is enough to create friction at every turn. People don't know what to do with you because your logic isn't loud, your resistance isn't performative, and your compliance isn't blind. You operate according to your own rules, and that makes everyone else uncomfortable. The annoyance isn't visible on the surface because you rarely declare it. You don't protest for attention, and you don't follow for approval. You do what works, what makes sense, and what preserves your freedom and integrity. That leaves other people constantly guessing. Are you against us or with us? Are you part of the team or just a ghost walking alongside? The uncertainty you create without trying is infuriating to those who crave certainty, loyalty, and easy categorization. It's exhausting to watch the world reward extremes while punishing subtlety. Rebels get attention for noise, obedient followers get comfort for conformity, and the Sigma male gets suspicion. Your independence is misread as arrogance, your quiet observation as judgment, and your ability to stay detached as a lack of loyalty. All the while, you're just living your life, avoiding unnecessary chaos, and refusing to waste energy proving something that doesn't matter. The most irritating part is how this misfit status becomes a social burden. People expect explanations, justifications, and alignments that you don't owe. They demand allegiance you can't give, trying to squeeze you into roles you reject internally. Every interaction becomes a test of patience and subtle navigation, balancing your integrity against a world obsessed with labels. Existing outside rebellion or obedience isn't about being difficult. It's about being self-directed in a world built for dependency, spectacle, and noise. And while most people never notice, The quiet tension it generates is a constant, uniquely infuriating companion for Sigma males, one they carry alone, with perfect awareness of how rarely anyone else can understand it. Number 4. Your restraint is mistaken for weakness. One of the most infuriating things a Sigma male experiences is how often their restraint is misunderstood. You've mastered control, emotional, mental, even physical, and yet people around you interpret that mastery as a flaw. Your silence, patience, and calculated approach get mistaken for indecision or lack of strength. They assume that because you don't react impulsively, you are somehow vulnerable, pliable, or weak. And the worst part? They test it, constantly. It starts with subtle challenges. Someone cuts in line, throws a careless insult, or manipulates a situation to see if you'll snap. To them, testing limits is just human nature. To you, it's exhausting. You have a clear understanding of what's happening, but calling it out or reacting immediately would only feed the spectacle. So you stay quiet, measured, and calm. And while you do, they misread your silence as passivity, not strategy. This misunderstanding compounds when decisions need to be made. People expect you to act like everyone else, fast, loud, visible. Your slower, deliberate style frustrates them because it doesn't satisfy their expectations of reaction. They don't recognize that your restraint is a form of power. Waiting, observing, choosing your moment. These are not signs of hesitation. They are precision, patience, and control. But to the untrained eye, it looks like hesitation, weakness, or even cowardice. And the irony? When you finally act, when your patience has reached its limit, the reaction is often shock, fear, or regret from those who misjudged you. That's when they finally realize that your silence and restraint were never weakness. They were quietly preparing for impact. But by then, the energy spent enduring constant misjudgment has already worn on you. Being underestimated in this way is a constant invisible frustration. Every misread pause, every questioned decision, every assumption about your softness chips away at patience. For Sigma males, restraint is a weapon, a shield, and a strategy. But living in a world that confuses it for weakness is one of the most uniquely irritating truths they have to endure. Number 5, you dislike explaining. Obvious things to people who refuse to observe. There's a unique kind of frustration that comes from watching the obvious slip past people who refuse to see it. Sigma males notice patterns, consequences, and connections quickly, often before anyone else in the room has even processed what's happening. But instead of everyone benefiting from this awareness, you end up in a position where you're expected to explain the obvious again and again to people who don't want to observe for themselves. It's mentally exhausting and quietly infuriating. The annoyance starts small. Someone misses a detail you've pointed out, then pretends not to notice, forcing you to repeat yourself. Over time, this repetition becomes a mental drain. You begin to recognize that no matter how clearly you present the truth, some people simply choose not to see it. And when they finally act on their ignorance, chaos or mistakes unfold exactly as you predicted, and yet the responsibility doesn't shift to them. Instead, you are expected to manage the fallout. What makes this worse is how society often rewards ignorance. People who fail to observe or think critically often get by on confidence, charm, or loudness. They don't need to put in the mental effort that comes naturally to Sigma males, and yet they are often praised or promoted for being decisive, while your careful analysis is dismissed as overthinking. The quiet intelligence you bring to the table is invisible until a disaster looms, and by then, you've already mentally cleaned up the mess in your head. There's also a sense of wasted energy that compounds the irritation. You instinctively process and understand the world around you, but every time you have to slow down, simplify, and explain, it feels like your mind is trapped in a loop. for the benefit of someone who refuses to look. It's not just frustrating, it's disrespectful, because your awareness is taken for granted and treated as optional. This subtle mental labor, the endless cycle of observation, explanation, and silent correction, is something only Sigma males truly feel. They live in a world full of blind spots, and the fact that people refuse to notice what's right in front of them makes every interaction a quiet, infuriating test of patience and self-control. Number 6, you attract curiosity, then resentment. There's an ironic twist to being a Sigma male. People are drawn to you like moths to a flame, curious about your independence, intrigued by your calm confidence, and fascinated by the way you operate without seeking approval. At first, this curiosity feels flattering, even empowering. People watch, ask questions, try to decode your methods, and sometimes even seek your guidance. But very quickly, that same fascination shifts into something darker, resentment. The shift happens subtly. Once people realize you don't orbit them, worship them, or bend to their expectations, the admiration they initially felt transforms into frustration. They wanted access, a piece of your energy or confirmation of their own importance. And when they discover that you are self-contained, self-directed, and untouchable in ways they can't control, annoyance sets in. The very traits that attract people initially, the calm, the independence, the quiet competence, become the reasons they start to dislike you. It's maddening because the resentment isn't logical. You haven't hurt anyone, haven't competed unfairly, haven't even sought attention. You simply exist on your own terms, and that makes other people uncomfortable. They resent you for not being part of their orbit, for not performing the expected social rituals, for refusing to validate their insecurities. The irony is brutal. Your self-mastery, your discipline, your ability to stay detached is simultaneously magnetic and threatening, and people rarely separate the two in their minds. Living with this duality is exhausting. Every interaction carries the subtle weight of expectation, curiosity, and eventual annoyance. You're admired from a distance, approached with questions, studied like a puzzle, and then resented when it becomes clear you aren't theirs to claim. The emotional labor of being both the object of fascination and the target of quiet envy is something most people never experience. For Sigma males, this is a recurring truth. The very qualities that make them exceptional also make them a source of irritation for the world. Attraction and resentment are inseparable, and learning to navigate it without losing patience or composure is one of the most uniquely challenging, infuriating experiences of their existence. Number 7, your independence threatens group identity. There's a subtle tension that follows Sigma males everywhere, and it often comes from a place nobody talks about: how threatening their independence is to group identity. Most people operate within social structures that rely on conformity, shared beliefs, and visible loyalty. Being part of a group isn't just a choice for them, it's survival, validation, and identity all rolled into one. But Sigma males don't play by those rules. They don't need the group's approval, they don't rely on its hierarchy, and they refuse to let collective pressure dictate their actions. That makes people uneasy in ways that are hard to articulate, but impossible to ignore. The problem isn't rebellion in the loud, obvious sense. Sigma males aren't standing on tables or protesting for attention. The threat comes from quiet autonomy. When you don't follow the group blindly, others start questioning themselves. If you can succeed, stay composed and make decisions without needing validation. Why can't they? Your independence highlights the cracks in the group's cohesion, exposing how much it depends on blind conformity rather than skill, thought, or strategy. And people don't like that. This dynamic often results in passive-aggressive behavior. People attempt to pull you in, subtly manipulate you or pressure you to align, all while maintaining the illusion of inclusion. Your presence alone challenges unspoken hierarchies and norms. Simply by existing outside of their dependency, you make the comfortable uncomfortable, and that discomfort breeds tension. It's exhausting because you're not actively fighting anyone, yet you're constantly misunderstood as a threat or a disruptor. The irony is brutal. Your independence, which should be admired, is treated as a danger. People want to benefit from your skills and insights, but recoil at the fact that you refuse to be claimed, categorized, or controlled. For Sigma males, this tension is part of life. Your ability to operate outside the collective spotlight is a strength, but it comes with the hidden cost of social friction. The independence that allows you to think, act, and thrive on your own terms is the same trait that makes groups uneasy, envious, and often quietly resentful, a uniquely infuriating paradox that only Sigma males truly live. Number 8. You're punished socially for not needing attention. There's a quiet injustice in the way society treats Sigma males. The world punishes you for something that should be a strength, your independence from attention. While most people chase validation, likes, recognition, and applause, you operate without it. You don't need approval to feel secure, you don't seek spotlight to feel worthy, and you don't perform just to be noticed. But in a world built on visibility, that lack of need is interpreted as suspicion, arrogance, or even a flaw. It starts in subtle ways. Social circles misread your detachment as disinterest or aloofness. Colleagues mistake your focus for a lack of engagement. Friends assume your calm, measured approach means you're not invested. And strangers, they read your quiet confidence as a challenge, a reason to criticize, undermine, or provoke. The irony is that your very self-sufficiency, the trait that allows you to operate efficiently and thoughtfully, becomes the reason people push back against you. The frustration escalates because attention seekers dominate the social landscape. The loud, performative, and impulsive gain accolades and influence, while quiet mastery goes unnoticed. People assume that if you're not visibly performing, you must be lacking in some way. The truth is the exact opposite. Your energy is preserved, your strategy intact, and your decisions deliberate. But society doesn't recognize subtle power. It only rewards spectacle. Being socially punished for independence also creates tension in relationships. People want your presence, your input, and your loyalty, but they also want to define your terms. Refusing to conform, refusing to perform, or refusing to seek their validation suddenly makes you the problem, even though your integrity is intact. Every interaction carries the weight of expectation, misinterpretation, and quiet judgment, and you're left navigating it without compromising your principles. For Sigma males, this is a constant, invisible annoyance, living in a culture obsessed with attention while refusing to participate in its game. The strength of self-sufficiency becomes a social liability, and every day is a balancing act between maintaining autonomy and managing the subtle friction it inevitably creates. Number 9, you think long-term in short-term environments. One of the most quietly infuriating things for Sigma males is living in a world obsessed with immediacy. While most people focus on instant gratification, visible results, and short-term wins, Sigma males naturally think ahead, weighing consequences, patterns, and long-term outcomes. The problem isn't that others don't plan, it's that they actively sabotage the future for fleeting comfort, status, or recognition, and then expect you to play along without complaint. It starts with observation. You notice how decisions made today ripple into months or years down the line. You see the inefficiencies, the reckless shortcuts, and the avoidable mistakes that everyone else ignores. While others celebrate the surface-level wins, you're quietly bracing for the fallout that they either can't see or don't care about. This creates an invisible tension. You're living two timelines at once, one in the present, carefully considered, and one in the chaotic, short-sighted reality everyone else is swimming in. The frustration intensifies because people rarely appreciate foresight. They reward action that's visible, fast, and loud, not strategy that's subtle, patient, and future-focused. Every time you suggest a careful approach, a rational plan, or a warning, it's dismissed as overthinking, paranoia, or hesitation. Meanwhile, the short-termers sail ahead, blissfully unaware that their choices are laying traps for themselves, and by extension, anyone wise enough to notice. Being a Sigma male in this environment is exhausting. You're forced to watch repeated mistakes unfold, often absorbing or correcting the fallout silently. You can't intervene without overstepping social norms, and you can't abandon foresight because it's ingrained in your thinking. You're constantly balancing patience with frustration, observation with restraint, and foresight with the reality everyone else chooses to ignore. The subtle irony is brutal. Your ability to anticipate, strategize, and prepare is your advantage, but in a society addicted to speed and spectacle, it's treated like a handicap. Thinking long-term in a world fixated on the short term is mentally taxing, socially isolating, and uniquely irritating, a persistent, invisible battle that only Sigma males truly understand. Number 10, you're misunderstood by both leaders and rebels. There's a unique frustration that Sigma males experience when they're caught in the middle of social hierarchies, misunderstood by both sides. Leaders look at you and immediately sense that you don't bow to authority, don't crave status, and don't play the game the way they do. They assume that your independence is disloyalty, that your quiet observation is judgment, and that your self-direction is a threat to their control. To them, you're unpredictable, potentially dangerous, and impossible to categorize, which often leads to subtle tension or outright exclusion. On the other side, rebels misread you just as harshly. They see your detachment from both hierarchy and chaos and assume that you're indifferent, uncommitted, or unwilling to fight. They don't notice that your quiet strategy and self-contained strength are forms of rebellion in themselves, rebellion that doesn't need approval, applause, or a stage. To them, your refusal to conform to their loud defiance makes you seem like an outsider, someone who can't be trusted, or someone whose intentions are unclear. The irony is relentless. You're operating on a plane both groups can't access. Leaders underestimate your capability and control because you aren't visibly ambitious. Rebels underestimate your influence and power because you don't broadcast it. You're fully aware of both worlds, and that awareness makes the misunderstanding sting even more. Every interaction requires careful calibration. One wrong move, one misunderstood silence, and either side reacts as if you're attacking, challenging, or dismissing them. This constant misinterpretation is mentally exhausting. You have to navigate spaces where your intentions are always questioned, your presence always analyzed, and your actions always second-guessed. It's not just tiring, it's infuriating because the world rewards extremes. Loud followers and showy rebels get recognition, while the Sigma male, who is quietly mastering both thought and action, remains misunderstood. Being misunderstood by both leaders and rebels is one of the most uniquely isolating experiences for Sigma males. You exist in a space of quiet competence, self-mastery, and strategic independence, and the fact that the majority can't comprehend that makes every social interaction a delicate and often irritating challenge. Number 11, you're annoyed by how rare self-mastery actually is. One of the most quietly infuriating truths for Sigma males is witnessing just how rare genuine self-mastery is. It's not about talent, intelligence, or even ambition. It's about control, awareness, and the ability to navigate life without being ruled by impulses, ego, or external validation. Sigma males live in a mental space where observation, strategy, and discipline come naturally, but the world around them is full of people who operate on chaos, habit, or fleeting emotions. Watching this unfold day after day is exhausting, irritating, and sometimes maddening. The annoyance comes from contrast. You notice how easily most people get swept up by noise, social pressure, emotional reactions, or the latest trend. Decisions that require patience, thought, and restraint are ignored for immediate satisfaction or recognition. Mistakes that could be avoided are repeated because people refuse to reflect. And the most irritating part, society often rewards this behavior. Loud, reactive, and impulsive actions get attention, promotions, and admiration, while quiet competence and disciplined strategy go unnoticed. You see the pattern, you predict the fallout, and yet the world continues to applaud mediocrity while ignoring mastery. It's even worse in personal interactions. Conversations with people who lack self-control feel shallow or frustrating because they don't engage on the level you operate. Their reactions are unpredictable, their priorities short-sighted, and their inability to pause and reflect tests your patience constantly. You want to engage, teach, or correct, but most of the time it's futile. They aren't ready, willing, or capable of understanding. This rarefied sense of perspective creates a subtle isolation. Sigma males move through life aware of patterns, consequences, and mental disciplines that few around them grasp. They observe, anticipate, and act with precision, and the lack of self-mastery in others becomes an ongoing source of irritation. It's not arrogance. It's a constant awareness of what's possible versus what exists. And living in a world where most people operate far below their potential is one of the uniquely frustrating realities only Sigma males truly understand. The brilliance of self-mastery is lonely, and the rarity of it is quietly maddening. Number 12. Being forced to sell yourself feels insulting. There's a silent irritation that gnaws at Sigma males when the world expects them to constantly sell themselves. Whether it's in interviews, social settings, networking events, or even casual interactions, society has built an entire system where self-promotion is treated as proof of value. But for a Sigma male, this feels not just unnecessary, it feels insulting. Your worth isn't in how loudly you announce it. And the idea that you must convince others of something they could only see if they paid attention to reality goes against everything instinctual in you. The frustration begins with the artificiality of it all. People treat boasting, exaggeration, and performative confidence as natural markers of competence. The loudest, most visible individuals often get rewarded, while quiet mastery and subtle skill go unnoticed. Sigma males live in a mental space where results speak louder than words, where competence is shown through action, not declaration. Being forced to advertise what you already embody feels like a waste of energy, and on some level, a slight to your intelligence. It becomes even more irritating when you see how easily others manipulate the system. People who shout their value, post it online, or overstate accomplishments are celebrated, while those who quietly achieve, plan, and execute are overlooked. The disconnect between true ability and perceived value is glaring, and you're stuck participating in a ritual that feels meaningless, performative, and exhausting. The irony is brutal. You know your worth, but the system refuses to recognize it without the flashy signals everyone else demands. Every forced handshake, every elevator pitch, every smile meant to impress feels hollow. You're conscious of the mechanics, the manipulation, and the shallow expectations, and that awareness only amplifies the irritation. For Sigma males, being forced to sell themselves is a daily grind against a world that misunderstands subtle competence. It's not just annoying, it's a clash of principles against culture, a constant reminder that your value exists independently of attention, applause, or validation, even if no one else can see it. In a world designed to reward noise, spectacle, and constant validation, Sigma males operate on a completely different frequency. They move quietly, think deeply, and act deliberately, often several steps ahead of everyone else. This unique way of navigating life comes with a hidden cost, an invisible weight of misunderstandings, misplaced expectations, and constant friction with a world that misreads silence for confusion, restraint for weakness, and independence for arrogance. Every interaction, every social expectation, every pressure to perform or explain becomes a subtle test of patience, strategy, and emotional resilience. The truth is, the qualities that make Sigma males extraordinary, their calm, observation, self-mastery, and independence, also make them targets of irritation, envy, and misjudgment. It's a life lived in quiet contrast to the chaos around them, a constant balance between self-preservation and engagement, understanding and restraint. And yet, this tension is what sharpens them, refines their clarity, and sets them apart from the rest. If this resonates with you, or if you've seen these patterns in someone you know, take a moment to reflect on the brilliance hidden in restraint, the power of operating beyond approval, and the quiet mastery that the world often fails to recognize. Share your thoughts, your experiences, and your insights in the comments below. We want to hear how Sigma traits have shaped your journey or challenged your perspective. Make sure to like this video if you found it striking, compelling, or illuminating. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content that dives deep into the truths that most people overlook, the dynamics that go unseen, and the realities that only a Sigma mind can truly appreciate. Share this with friends, allies, or anyone who moves differently in a world obsessed with conformity. Understanding these annoyances isn't just entertaining, it's enlightening, empowering, and a reminder that operating on your own terms is a rare, extraordinary strength worth celebrating.